My name is Haney Hong. I'm a lieutenant in the United States Navy, and I'm a submarine officer.
My name is Lt.Chris Carter. I'm in the United States Navy. I'm a submarine officer, and I drive submarines for a living.
I'm first generation South Korean. My folks, both my mom and dad, they immigrated to this country in the late 70s, and they settled in California with $2 in their back pocket. And my dad, who's always been a firm believer in the United States and what this country stands for, told me and my two siblings that we'll do some sort of service to this country. So I was looking for ways to do service in the Navy, and I saw the ROTC program.
My grandfather was in the Army. My father was in the Marine Corps. I went down to my father's base one day. His captain brought me into his room, knowing that I was an okay student, knowing that I was a pretty good athlete. He said, "Have you thought about the Naval Academy?" Me being the different one, I decided to go into the Navy. My father didn't want me initially to go into the Navy. He, of course, wanted me to go to the Marine Corps, but I, kind of wanted to blaze my own trail.
So it was an interesting conversation. My senior year in high school, I said, "Hey, Dad, so how are we going to pay for college?" And the answer was, "Well, that's a good question, Amy. How are you going to pay for college?" So ROTC was definitely a good option for that. And luckily enough, I was contacted by somebody in the Navy, and they said, "Hey, have you heard of ROTC?" And I said, "I've heard a little bit about it. What's in it for you? What's in it for me?" And they said, "Hey, well, we'll pay for school, we'll pay for your books, we'll give you a stipend." And I said, "Okay, well, what's in it for you guys?" They said, "After you graduate, then you'll have a full-time job as an officer in the United States Navy."
I majored in systems engineering, which was a very hard major. It's basically a combination of electrical, mechanical, and computer science, which provided me the background that was necessary to go into the submarine force. I actually took a submarine cruise, and that opened my eyes to what the submarine force was. I saw the camaraderie, I saw how the people interacted, I saw what I knew I wanted to do with the next at least 5 years of my life.
Well, the submarine force offers actually extensive training for its young junior officers. In fact, that's probably one of the selling points of why I joined the submarine force in the first place. As a submariner, you get extensive engineering training, and you start, after you graduate, you go through 6 months of what's called Nuclear Power School in Charleston, South Carolina.
After I got my commission, I went to Nuclear Power School in Charleston, South Carolina. That's basically a 6-month course where they teach you all the theory, the design, and the know-how behind nuclear physics. They teach you all about, the kind of how to drive the submarine. They teach you about radar, sonar, fire control. I mean, all the great, cool things about submarining. You
go from knowing nothing about nuclear engineering to having enough theoretical understanding so that you understand design components and operations. The one thing that makes the submarine force unique is submarines are much larger than most people think. I mean, we've got fast attack submarines that are about 350 feet long, ballistic missile submarines that are 600 feet long. And it's a full-size ship, but unfortunately, because you have to put a lot of equipment in not a lot of space, you can't have as many people. So we in the submarine force pride ourselves on being able to multitask. And so every sailor on a submarine does multiple things and has multiple jobs because it's a full-size ship, but you only have 120 to 140 people. There really is no typical day for a member of a submarine crew.
The submarine force 9 to 5 doesn't exist. The submarine force, basically, we have an 18-hour day.
You go on deployment and you get to see some great places. I mean, I spent 7 days in Singapore. After we finished one mission, 7 days in Singapore, got to hang out with my friends and the other guys on the ship. And then we were driving around the Pacific, and just due to schedule changes, we ended up spending New Year's Eve in Japan.
When you're not on watch, you actually have the opportunity to kick back. It's not all work and no play. Those 12 hours after you get off watch are kind of yours. So sure, there's some training and there's some other type of things you have to go to, some lectures maybe, but the other 12 hours, you have to get some sleep in there as well. But you can, play cards, you can play Texas Hold'em, poker, you can play dominoes, you can, there's other opportunities to have fun outside of that, within that 12-hour period.
What is most memorable about the United States Navy and the submarine force in particular is the camaraderie that you develop and the esprit de corps that's generated when you're working so closely with a small crew of about 120 to 140 people.
I reported to the boat with a guy I had not known before in my entire life. I did not know him throughout the pipeline. I did not know him at all. Showed up to the same day with him, and that guy was in my wedding.
You get to know everybody. You know where they're from, you know if they're married, you know if they've got kids, you know they've got 3 dogs. And everybody really gets to know one another, and you really develop a strong personal and professional respect for everybody else with whom you work. And that's what's most memorable about the experience.
The Navy is not just a job, but it's my life. It's provided me a certain level of camaraderie where I have gained a lot of friends on a lot of different levels within the Navy in my short time in the Navy.
I'm a very young individual that has been afforded the opportunity to go to college, which I would not have had without the Navy, but I've also been granted great responsibility and authority.
And by being in the Navy up until this point, I've served with some of the greatest leaders on our planet. I have learned immensely from those particular people how to lead.
So training, quality life, and the last leg of my triad here is the leadership opportunity. You, as a submarine officer, immediately jump in and you're running an engine room, or when you show up, you're learning immediately how to be in charge of the entire ship.
If I was going to talk to someone who was coming to the submarine force, whether it be my brother or my sister, I would tell them that the Navy offers an extreme amount of education. You can become a doctor, you can become a lawyer, you can drive ships, you can drive submarines, you can fly jets. You can do all those things in the Navy. If you want to work with the best and the brightest, and on the cutting edge of technology, then the submarine force is where you should go.